I was 2 weeks away from closing on my dream home when the bank flagged $50,000 of debt I didn't create. Discovering my mother was the thief broke my heart, but her arrogant refusal to apologize is what made me ensure she left the courtroom in handcuffs. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The call that ruined my life, or at least the life I thought I had built, came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was raining, a gray, relentless drizzle that smeared the view from my office window, blurring the city skyline into a watercolor of steel and gloom. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by the comforting order of spreadsheets and audit logs, feeling a rare moment of contentment. I was 29 years old. I was a senior forensic accountant at a top-tier firm. And in exactly 14 days, I was scheduled to close on a beautiful, restorative craftsman bungalow in the suburbs. It was the first thing I had ever done purely for myself, a tangible symbol that I had escaped the chaotic, unstable orbit of my childhood. My phone buzzed. It was Jason, my mortgage broker. I smiled as I picked up, expecting him to ask for a redundant pay stub or to confirm the closing time. "Hey, Jason," I said, leaning back in my ergonomic chair. "Please tell me you don't need another bank statement. I think I've sent you my entire life history in PDF form." There was a silence on the other end. It wasn't the comfortable silence of a bad connection. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of bad news. "Fiona," Jason said, his voice tight, I don't know how to tell you this. The underwriter just kicked back the file." My smile evaporated. I sat up straight, my hand gripping the phone tight enough to turn my knuckles white. "What do you mean? My credit score is 810. My debt-to-income ratio is perfect. We pre-approved this months ago." "It was perfect," Jason corrected, his voice dropping an octave. "But they did a final soft pull of your credit report this morning to clear the file for closing. Fiona, there are 5 new accounts showing up, all maxed out. We're looking at utilization over 90%. Your score dropped nearly 150 points overnight." The room seemed to tilt. "That's impossible," I stammered, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "I haven't opened a credit card in 6 years. It's a mistake. It has to be identity theft." "It looks like significant usage," Jason said gently. "High-end retail, travel, cash advances. The total outstanding balance is just shy of $52,000. $52,000. A wave of nausea rolled through me, hot and acidic. That was more than my down payment. That was ruinous. "I didn't do this," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Jason, you have to believe me. I audit companies for fraud for a living. I don't run up 50 grand in debt before buying a house." "I believe you," he said, though I could hear the pity in his tone. "But the bank deals in numbers, not character references. Unless this debt is cleared or proven to be fraud with a police report filed and processed, which takes months, we can't close. I'm sorry, Fiona. The house of the deal is dead." I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. I stared at the dark screen, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. I felt physically ill, like I had been punched in the gut. The house was gone. My credit was destroyed. Someone had stolen my financial identity and torched it. I immediately logged into the credit monitoring service I rarely checked because I was so careful. There they were. 5 cards. Platinum, gold, sapphire, all opened in the last 6 months. I clicked on the transaction details for the card with the highest balance, my hands shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. I needed to see where the statements were being sent. I needed to see who had done this to me. I scrolled down to the billing address. 142 Maplewood Drive. The air left my lungs. The world stopped spinning. I didn't need to look up the address. I had memorized it when I was 4 years old. I had moved out of it when I was 18. It was my parents' house. The betrayal hit me harder than the diagnosis of the debt itself. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a hacker in a basement halfway across the world. The thief was inside the family. For a long time, I just sat there. My office, usually a sanctuary of logic and order, felt like a cage. I stared at the address on the screen until the letters blurred together. 142 Maplewood Drive. My mind raced, trying to find an alternative explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I had co-signed something years ago and forgotten. But deep down, the forensic accountant in me knew better. The data didn't lie. The dates of the account openings coincided perfectly with a visit I had made home 6 months ago. A visit where I had left my purse unattended in the kitchen while I helped my dad, Benedict, fix the chaotic mess of his garage. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and stinging. I wiped it away angrily. Crying wouldn't fix my credit score. Crying wouldn't get my house back. I printed everything. The statements, the account details, the transaction histories. I grabbed a highlighter, yellow, my weapon of choice, and started categorizing the spending. It wasn't for essentials. There were no grocery bills, no utility payments, no medical emergencies. Luxury spa, $450. Nordstrom, $1,200. The Venetian Resort, Las Vegas, $3,400. Elite auto leasing, down payment, $5,000. It was a catalog of indulgence. It was a lifestyle being funded by my future. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovered over the contact labeled Mom. My stomach twisted into knots. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. I hit the call button. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and airy. The tone she used when she was pretending everything was perfect. "Fiona, darling, I was just thinking about you. Amelia and I are looking at venues for her birthday party, and we saw the cutest little." "Mom," I cut her off. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, cold, flat, dead. "Why are there 5 credit cards in my name registered to your address?" The silence on the other end was instantaneous. It wasn't the silence of confusion. It was the sharp, intake-of-breath silence of someone who has been caught. I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice pitching up. The innocence was so feigned it was insulting. "Don't lie to me," I said, looking at the spreadsheet in front of me. "I have the statements right here, Linda. The platinum card, the sapphire card, $52,000. The billing address is yours. The transactions are in your city. Did you open these cards in my name?" A pause, then a heavy sigh, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Fiona, stop being so dramatic," she snapped, the airy facade dropping to reveal the steel beneath. "I didn't steal anything. I borrowed your credit. You weren't using it. You have that fancy job, you make all that money, and you never help us. Your father and I have been struggling, and Amelia needed things for her careers." "Her career?" I choked out. "Amelia is unemployed, Mom, and you spent $3,000 in Vegas." "Networking," she yelled back. "It was for networking. Look, I intended to pay it back. I just got behind a little bit. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal?" I stood up, trembling with rage. "I lost my house today. The mortgage was denied because of this debt. You destroyed my credit." "Well," she said, and I could practically hear her shrugging over the phone. "Maybe if you hadn't been so secretive about buying a house, we would have known. And honestly, Fiona, if $50,000 ruins you, then you weren't ready for homeownership. You should have budgeted better." The line went dead. She hung up on me. I stood there, the phone still pressed to my ear, the dial tone buzzing like a hornet. "You should have budgeted better." The words echoed in my skull. The woman who had just committed a felony against her own daughter, who had spent my hard-earned stability on spa days and her other daughter's delusions of grandeur, had the audacity to lecture me on budgeting. I looked down at the stack of papers on my desk, my forensic audit reports, the evidence I used to put CEOs and embezzlers behind bars. A cold calm washed over me, the shaking stopped, my breathing slowed. Linda thought she was dealing with her daughter, the quiet, pushover girl who just wanted everyone to get along. She thought this was a family squabble we would sweep under the rug because family is everything. But she had forgotten one crucial thing. She wasn't just dealing with her daughter anymore. She was dealing with a senior forensic accountant who had just been handed the most personal case of her career. And she had no idea that I kept receipts for everything. To understand why this betrayal cut so deep, you have to understand the dynamic of the house I grew up in. I was always the boring one, the practical one. While other kids were asking for toys, I was saving my allowance in a lockbox under my bed. I started working at 14, bagging groceries, and I never stopped. I put myself through college on scholarships and night shifts. I didn't take vacations. I didn't buy designer clothes. I saved. I invested. I built a fortress of financial security around myself because I knew, deep down, that no one else would ever catch me if I fell. Linda, my mother, was the opposite. She was a creature of image. She described herself as an image consultant, though I never saw her actually consult anyone who paid her. She believed that if you looked rich, you were rich. She leased luxury cars she couldn't afford, bought clothes she wore once, and threw dinner parties where she served expensive wine while the electricity bill sat unpaid in the drawer. My father, Benedict, was a ghost in his own life. He worked a mid-level government job, made a decent salary, and let Linda spend every cent of it. He was the ultimate enabler. If Linda wanted a new remodeling project, Benedict would sigh, rub his temples, and then sign the loan papers. He loved the peace more than he loved the solvency. And then there was Amelia, my younger sister, the golden child. Amelia was 26 and had never held a full-time job for longer than 3 months. She was going to be an actress, then a model, then a lifestyle influencer. She was beautiful, charming, and utterly useless with money. Linda saw herself in Amelia, or rather, the version of herself she wanted to be. So, Amelia got the best of everything. When I graduated college, I got a handshake and a good luck. When Amelia dropped out of college, Linda bought her a brand new convertible to cheer her up. I had accepted this. I had made my peace with being the invisible bank account of the family. I helped out where I could, paying for a new water heater here, covering a car repair there. I thought that was enough. But sitting in my apartment that night, looking at the spreadsheet, I realized it was never enough. My fiancé, Mark, came home to find me sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by papers. Mark was an architect, steady, kind, and infuriatingly logical. He took one look at my face and dropped his bag. "Fiona," he asked, kneeling beside me, "what happened? Did the closing date change?" "There is no closing," I said, my voice hollow. I handed him the credit report. He scanned it, his brow furrowing. "I don't understand. What are these?" "My mother," I said. "She opened them. She spent it all, mostly on Amelia from the looks of it." Mark went quiet. He knew my family. He knew the tension, but this was different. "Fiona, this is fraud. This is a crime." "I know," I said. "We have to call the police," Mark said firmly. "We have to file a report. It's the only way to clear your name and get the loan approved." "If I call the police, she goes to jail," I whispered. "She's my mother." "She stole $50,000 from you," Mark countered, his voice rising. "She stole our house. Fiona, look at this charge. Prestige PR firm. $2,000. What is that?" "Amelia's brand management," I said, feeling a fresh wave of bitterness. "She wants to be verified on Instagram." "They are cannibals," Mark said, a harshness in his tone I'd never heard before. "They are eating you alive to feed their own fantasies. If you don't stop them now, they will never stop. They will drain you until there is nothing left." He was right. I knew he was right. But the conditioning of a lifetime is hard to break. The voice in my head, Linda's voice, was already whispering, "How could you do this to your family? After everything we did for you." Then my phone buzzed again, a text from Amelia. "Hey, Mom said you were being a total brat on the phone earlier. Don't be selfish, Fi. We're family. Also, can you transfer me $200? My card got declined at dinner, and it's super embarrassing." I stared at the screen. "Don't be selfish." Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet, metallic click of a lock engaging. They didn't see me as a person, they saw me as a resource, a line of credit with a pulse. And when I had confronted Linda, she hadn't felt guilt. She had felt entitled. I looked at Mark, I wiped my face, I stood up. "I'm not going to call the police," I said. Mark looked at me, disappointed. "Fiona, you can't just pay this." "I'm not going to pay it either," I said. I walked over to my desk and picked up my laptop. I opened a new file. I named it Project Foreclosure. "I'm going to do what she suggested," I said, a cold smile touching my lips. "She told me I should have budgeted better, so I'm going to help her budget. I'm going to take over her finances. I'm going to make her think I'm fixing it for her." "Why?" Mark asked, confused. "Because," I said, typing in the first entry on the new spreadsheet. "To clear this debt legally without waiting 6 months for an investigation, I need her to admit the debt is hers in writing. And to do that, I need access to everything. Her bank accounts, her emails, her tax returns. I'm going to conduct a full forensic audit on my own parents," I said, looking at Mark. "And once I have the evidence, I'm not just going to get my money back. I'm going to burn their little house of cards to the ground." The following Saturday, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't take my car, I took Mark's battered sedan. I didn't wear my usual tailored blazer and heels, I wore a pair of old jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. I needed to look defeated. I needed to look like the daughter who had finally accepted her place in the hierarchy. I pulled into the driveway of 142 Maplewood Drive. The house looked pristine from the outside, manicured lawn, fresh paint, a wreath of expensive faux hydrangeas on the door. It was a perfect facade, hiding the rot within. Linda answered the door before I could knock. She was wearing a silk caftan that I knew cost $300, holding a glass of Chardonnay even though it was barely noon. "Fiona," she said, her tone cool. She didn't move to hug me. She surveyed my outfit with a distinct sneer. "You look tired." "I am," I said, looking at my feet. "Can I come in? I want to talk about the money." She stepped aside, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. "I knew you'd come to your senses. I told your father, Fiona just needs a moment to calm down. Come on, we're in the sunroom." I followed her. The house was stiflingly warm and smelled of potpourri and denial. In the sunroom, my father, Benedict, was sitting in his armchair, staring blankly at a golf tournament on TV. Amelia was sprawled on the rattan sofa, thumbing through her phone. "Hey, Fi," Amelia said without looking up. "Did you bring the money for my dress? The gala is next week." I ignored her and sat on the ottoman, keeping my posture slumped. I looked at Linda. "Mom," I began, keeping my voice soft and trembling slightly. "I've been thinking about what you said, about budgeting." Linda sat in her wicker throne, swirling her wine. And you were right," I lied. The taste of it was bile in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I panicked. I shouldn't have yelled. Family helps family, right? "Exactly," Linda said, beaming now. She loved being right more than she loved money. "I was only trying to help you build your credit history, darling. You'll thank me later." "I want to make it right," I said. "But the bank is really breathing down my neck. They won't approve the mortgage unless I can show a concrete plan for how this debt is being managed. Since I'm a forensic accountant, I thought I could help us all." Linda's eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "I want to take over the household budget," I said. "Just for a few months. I'll structure the payments for the credit cards, manage the bills, and get everything organized. That way, I can show the bank I'm managing the family assets. It might save my loan." I paused, letting the hook dangle. "And, of course, it means you won't have to worry about paying the bills. I'll handle the administrative headache. You just live your life." Linda exchanged a look with Benedict. I saw the gears turning. Linda hated admin. She hated logging into banking portals. She hated seeing balances go down. To her, this sounded like a personal assistant working for free. "Well," Linda said, taking a sip of wine, "I suppose that would be helpful. Your father is useless with the online banking, and I simply don't have the time. Great, I said, reaching into my bag and pulling out a notepad. To do it, I'll need access. Everything, Mom. Usernames, passwords, the safe combination. If I'm going to present a solvency plan to the bank, it has to be comprehensive. Fine, fine, she waved a hand dismissively. It's all in the red binder in the study. Password is Linda 1968 for everything. Just don't bore me with the details. I won't, I promised. I'll just fix it. I spent the next 4 hours in my father's study. It was a goldmine of negligence. I logged into everything. I didn't just find the 5 credit cards I knew about, I found the cracks in the foundation. They were 3 months behind on their own mortgage. The business loan for Linda's consulting firm was in default. But I focused on my objective. I downloaded every single statement for the cards in my name. I matched the IP addresses of the transactions to the home Wi-Fi. I found the emails confirming the orders sent to Linda's email address, not mine. Then I found the smoking gun I didn't even know I was looking for. In a folder labeled Correspondence, I found a letter from the credit card issuer, dated 6 months ago. It was a fraud alert asking to verify the identity of the applicant. Stapled to it was a copy of my birth certificate and social security card. My hands shook as I held it. She hadn't just clicked a button online. She had gone into my old room, raided my personal files, and faxed documents to the bank impersonating me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was calculated identity theft. I took photos of everything. I downloaded the PDFs to an encrypted drive. And then I created a document of my own. I titled it Family Debt Consolidation and Management Agreement. It looked like boring legalese. Buried in the dense paragraphs about payment restructuring and interest mitigation was a clause. The undersigned Linda and Benedict acknowledge full liability for the accounts listed in Schedule A, the fraudulent cards, and certify that LL charges incurred were for their sole benefit and use, without the authorization or knowledge of the primary account holder, Fiona. I walked back out to the sunroom. Okay, I said, putting on my best professional smile. I've got the budget set up. I just need you both to sign this authorization form so I can talk to the creditors on your behalf. It just says I'm acting as your financial proxy. Linda didn't even read it. She was too busy scrolling through travel deals on her iPad. She scribbled her signature. Benedict signed where she pointed. Thanks, Mom, I said, tucking the document into my bag. I'll get to work on this right away. Good, she said, not looking up. Oh, and Fiona, since you're handling the money now, transfer $500 to Amelia. She needs hair extensions. I'll see what the budget allows, I said. As I walked to the car, I felt lightheaded. I had the confession, I had the evidence, I had the power. Now, I just had to tighten the noose. The budget I implemented was not what Linda expected. I didn't pay their bills with my money. I used the access they gave me to divert their income into the accounts that were screaming for payment. 3 days after my visit, Amelia called me screaming. Fiona, my card was declined at Starbucks. What the hell did you do? I'm managing the budget, Amelia, I said calmly, putting her on speaker while I reviewed a forensic timeline at my desk. According to my analysis, you've spent $400 on coffee this month. The allocation for discretionary dining is 0 until the mortgage arrears are cleared. You can't do that, she shrieked. Mom, Fiona cut off my money. I heard Linda grab the phone. Fiona, fix this immediately. This isn't what we agreed to. It's exactly what we agreed to, I said. You wanted me to fix the finances. To do that, I have to stop the hemorrhaging. The Lux Life credit card, the one in my name, is maxed out, Mom. I can't pay Amelia's Starbucks bill with a maxed out card. Then use your own money, Linda snapped. That was the implication, Fiona, that you would help us. I am helping, I said. I'm helping you avoid foreclosure. By the way, I noticed a recurring charge of $200 for a storage unit. I canceled it. You have until Saturday to empty it out. You did what? Linda's voice went shrill. My winter wardrobe is in there. Budget cuts, I said. Talk soon. I hung up. I knew this petty torment wasn't the end game, but it was necessary. I needed to provoke them. I needed them to act desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. The real confrontation happened a week later. I invited them to dinner at a neutral location, a mid-range Italian restaurant. I told them I had an update on the plan. Mark came with me for support and to serve as a witness. Linda arrived looking flustered. Benedict looked tired. Amelia looked murderous. This little experiment is over, Linda announced as she slammed her purse onto the table. I want my passwords back. I want access to the accounts. You are embarrassing us, Fiona. The country club membership was suspended yesterday because the autopay failed. Because there was no money in the account, Linda, I said, dropping the mom. I signaled the waiter to give us a minute. There would be money if you weren't hoarding it, she hissed. You're stealing from us. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. That's a fascinating accusation, I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single folder. I placed it on the table. Speaking of stealing. I opened the folder. On top was the fraud alert with my forged signature. Underneath was the debt consolidation agreement they had signed, admitting liability. What is this? Benedict asked, squinting at the papers. That, I said, pointing to the document, is a confession. You signed it last week. You admitted that the $52,000 of debt on cards in my name is yours. You admitted I didn't authorize it. Linda's face went pale, then red. You tricked me. That doesn't count. I didn't read it. It counts in court, I said coolly, and so does this. I laid out the spreadsheet. I've traced the spending, the trip to Vegas, the down payment on the Lexus, the endless Nordstrom hauls. It's all here. And here is the IP log showing these accounts were opened from your iPad, Linda. The table went silent. The noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away. So here is the new deal, I said, my voice steel. You are going to take out a home equity line of credit on the house. You are going to use that money to pay off these 5 cards in full, within 30 days. We can't do that, Benedict whispered. Our credit is shot. I know, I said, but the house has equity. You'll have to find a subprime lender. The rates will be terrible, but it's the only way. And if we don't, Linda challenged, crossing her arms. She was trying to regain her footing, trying to the old arrogance. You won't sue us, Fiona. You don't have the stomach for it. You're my daughter. You're not going to send your mother to jail over some credit cards. She leaned in, her eyes hard. You'll pay it off eventually, because you're desperate for that little house of yours, and you'll keep quiet because you're weak. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had given birth to me, and I felt absolutely nothing. The cord was cut. I gave you a chance, I said softly. I gave you a way to fix this quietly. I'm not doing a damn thing, Linda spat. Fix it yourself. Budget better. I stood up. Mark stood up with me. Okay, I said. Enjoy your dinner. I'm not paying for this either. We walked out. As we reached the door, I heard Linda laughing, telling Amelia, she's bluffing. She'll be back begging on Monday. She was wrong. I wasn't going back. I was going to the precinct. The morning after the dinner, I walked into the Central Police Station. I didn't just walk in with a story. I walked in with a binder that was formatted to Department of Justice standards. Table of contents, executive summary, evidence appendices, digital forensic logs, and the signed confession. The detective, a weary man named Detective Miller, looked at the stack of papers and then at me. Usually, he said, flipping through the pages, folks come in here with a handwritten statement and a lot of tears. This is a prosecutor's dream. I'm a forensic accountant, I said. I wanted to save you the time. You understand, Miller said, looking me in the eye, that if we pursue this, it's a felony? Identity theft, wire fraud, forgery. Your mother could do real time. I understand, I said. File it. I left the station with a case number. I scanned the police report and emailed it immediately to the fraud departments of all 5 credit card companies and the credit bureaus. Within 48 hours, the debt was provisionally removed from my credit report pending the investigation. My score shot back up. Jason, the mortgage broker, called me, ecstatic. The loan was back on. I could close on my house. But the war wasn't over. Linda, unaware that the legal wheels were turning, decided to escalate. I received a notification from my employer's HR department. Someone had called, claiming to be a concerned creditor, trying to garnish my wages for unpaid debt. Linda was trying to sabotage my job. Then, Amelia started a smear campaign on social media. She posted videos crying, claiming her rich, corporate sister had cut off her sick parents and left them to starve. She didn't mention the fraud. She just painted me as a monster. Strangers were commenting, calling me selfish, heartless. It hurt, I won't lie. Seeing my own sister weaponize her tears against me stung. But then, I found the final piece of the puzzle. The escalation to end all escalations. Since I still had access to Linda's email, she hadn't changed the password, assuming I was bluffing, I saw a confirmation come through. Reservation confirmed, the Golden Oak Ballroom. Event, the Peterson family reunion. Cost, $15,000. Status, deposit paid. I stared at the screen. The Peterson reunion was a massive event held every 5 years. Extended family from all over the country came. It was Linda's Olympics, her chance to show off how successful and wealthy she was. But where did she get the money? I had locked down the accounts I knew about. I dug deeper. I looked at the payment source for the deposit. It wasn't a credit card. It was a withdrawal from a 401k. My stomach dropped. It was Benedict's retirement fund. She had forged his signature, again, to liquidate a chunk of his retirement to pay for a party, just to prove to the extended family that she was still the queen bee. I called my dad. "Dad," I said, "did you authorize a $15,000 withdrawal from your 401k yesterday?" "What?" His voice was groggy. "No, that account is locked until I'm 65. Why?" "Linda took it," I said, "for the reunion." Silence, then a broken sob. "She promised," he whispered. "She promised she would stop spending. Fiona, that's all we have left." "I know, Dad," I said. "I'm sorry." I can't fight her," he said, his voice weak. "She'll just scream, she'll make life hell, I have to let it go." He was broken, he wasn't going to stop her. But I was. The reunion was in 3 days. Linda thought she had won. She thought I was cowed by the social media bullying. She thought she was going to host the event of the season, funded by stolen retirement money, and bask in the adoration of our relatives. She had no idea that Detective Miller and I were planning a different kind of guest list. I called the detective. "They're having a large gathering on Saturday," I said. "If you want to serve the warrant, you'll know where to find her." "We usually do these things quietly," Miller said, "at the residence." "SA. Ease a flight risk," I lied, though given her delusion, maybe she was. "And honestly, detective, she needs to understand that actions have public consequences." I hung up, I looked at Mark. "Are we going to this party?" he asked. "Oh, yes," I said, checking the tracking on my new house keys. "We have a toast to make." The Golden Oak Ballroom was a testament to my mother's delusion. It was draped in gold chiffon and illuminated by crystal chandeliers that refracted the light into 1,000 blinding shards. There were centerpieces of white orchids that cost more than my monthly student loan payment. There was a jazz quartet playing soft, inoffensive standards in the corner. And there was Linda, standing at the center of it all, wearing a shimmering silver gown, holding a glass of champagne like a scepter. Mark and I stood at the entrance, uninvited ghosts at the feast. I was wearing a simple black dress, sharp and severe. I wasn't there to party. I was there to witness the demolition. The room was packed with cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts who pinched cheeks, and uncles who talked too loudly about politics. They were all drinking the open bar liquor, completely unaware that they were toasting with the proceeds of a felony. We moved through the crowd. I saw Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, and nodded. She looked at me, surprised. "Fiona, we didn't think you were coming. Linda said you were, battling some personal demons." "I am," I said, my eyes fixed on the stage, "but I think I'm winning." A spoon clinked against a glass. The room hushed. Linda stepped up to the microphone, beaming. She looked radiant, the picture of the benevolent matriarch. "Family," she began, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "I am so overwhelmed to see you all here. When I planned this night, people told me, 'Linda, it's too much, it's too extravagant.' But I said, no cost is too high for family. We have been through so much, and I wanted to give us all a night to remember. A night of generosity." I felt Mark squeeze my hand. This was it. "I also want to take a moment," Linda continued, scanning the room until her eyes landed on me. She didn't look worried, she looked smug. She thought my presence meant I had surrendered. "To welcome my daughter, Fiona. She's had a difficult year financially, struggling to find her footing. But I want her to know we are here to support her." The audacity took my breath away. She was publicly shaming me while standing on a platform paid for with my stolen identity. I didn't wait for her to finish. I walked toward the stage. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just walked, the heels of my shoes clicking rhythmically on the parquet floor. "That's a beautiful speech, Mother," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the silent room. Linda's smile faltered. "Fiona, darling, let's not make a scene. We can talk later." "No," I said, stopping at the base of the stage. "We're going to talk now. You mentioned generosity. You mentioned the cost." I turned to the room. My father was sitting at the head table, looking small and shrunken in his tuxedo. "Everyone is enjoying the champagne," I said, raising my voice slightly. "It's delicious. Vintage, I assume, but you should know who paid for it." "Fiona, sit down." Amelia hissed from the side, trying to grab my arm. I shook her off. "I didn't pay for it," I said. "Even though $50,000 of debt was opened in my name, under my social security number, by the woman standing on the stage." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. Linda's face turned the color of ash. "She's lying," Linda shouted into the mic, the feedback screeching. "She's unstable. She's having a breakdown." "I have the police report," I said calmly, holding up the blue folder I had carried in. "And the forensic audit. But that wasn't enough for tonight, was it, Mom? You needed more cash for the orchids, so you didn't just steal my identity." I looked directly at my father. "Dad," I said, "she forged your signature yesterday. She liquidated $15,000 from your 401k. The retirement money you worked 40 years for, it's gone. It's in these centerpieces. It's in the open bar." Benedict stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. He looked at Linda, his eyes wide with a horror that finally pierced through the denial. "Linda," he croaked, "tell me she's lying. Tell me you didn't touch the retirement." Linda looked trapped. She stammered, "Benedict, honey, it was an investment. In our image, in the family legacy." "It was theft," I said. "It was necessary," Linda screamed, the mask finally slipping completely. Her face twisted into a snarl. "You ungrateful little brat, I gave you life. I deserve this. I deserve to be happy. If you had just budgeted better, if you had just given me the money I asked for, I wouldn't have had to do this." The silence in the room was absolute. She had admitted it, in front o. F everyone. Then, the double doors at the back of the ballroom opened. It wasn't the caterers. Detective Miller walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. The sight of the uniforms in the gilded ballroom was jarring, a splash of cold reality on a fever dream. Linda froze. She dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a deafening thud. "Linda Peterson," Detective Miller's voice boomed. "No," Linda whispered, backing away. "No, you can't, not here, not in front of them." "Please step down from the stage, ma'am," Miller said, walking up the aisle. We have a warrant for your arrest on 5 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of forgery. Benedict, Linda shrieked, looking at my father. Do something, tell them it's a mistake. My father looked at the woman he had enabled for 30 years. He looked at the wreckage of his finances. He looked at me, standing tall and vindicated. He slowly sat back down. He turned his chair away from the stage. I have nothing to say to you, he whispered. The officers ascended the steps. Linda tried to run, a pathetic, stumbling dash in her heels toward the backstage exit, but an officer blocked her path. They grabbed her arms. Get your hands off me, she screamed, thrashing. Do you know who I am? I am Linda Peterson. I am a pillar of this community. You have the right to remain silent, the officer recited, spinning her around. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It cut through the music, the murmurs, the lies. Click, click, click. Amelia was standing by the table, holding her phone up, recording. She looked terrified, but instinct drove her to capture the content. Put the phone away, Amelia, I said quietly. Linda was marched down the stairs, past the stunned relatives, past the untouched cake. As she passed me, she didn't look at me. She was staring straight ahead, her eyes glassy with shock. She looked old. She looked small. She looked like a thief. I watched them lead her out the double doors. The spell was broken. The party was over. I turned to Mark. Let's go home. The fallout was swift and brutal, exactly as the forensic accountant in me had predicted. Linda spent 3 nights in county jail before a distant cousin posted her bail. But she didn't return to 142 Maplewood Drive. My father, Benedict, had finally found his spine. While she was in the holding cell, he changed the locks. He filed a restraining order and 2 days later, divorce papers. He wasn't a hero. He had let it go on for far too long, but he was trying to salvage what was left of his life. He moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment near his office and started attending therapy. Because I had provided such a comprehensive evidence package, the district attorney didn't have to work hard. Linda's lawyer, a court-appointed public defender, because she had no money left for a private one, advised her to plead guilty. She took a plea deal to avoid a lengthy prison sentence. She was sentenced to 5 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and ordered to pay full restitution. She now has a felony record. The socialite of Maplewood Drive is now unhirable in any finance or retail position. Last I heard, she was living in a rented room in the next town over, working under the table as a seamstress. She still tells anyone who will listen that she was betrayed by a jealous daughter, but nobody invites her to the parties anymore. Amelia's reality check was perhaps the most satisfying. With Linda's credit cards frozen and Benedict's wallet closed, the influencer lifestyle evaporated overnight. She had to sell the car. She had to sell the designer bags. She currently works as a receptionist at a dental office. She called me once, asking for help with rent. I can't send you money, I told her, using the line that had been weaponized against me for so long. But I can send you a template for a budget spreadsheet. You really should budget better. She hung up on me. We haven't spoken since. As for me, the credit bureaus worked faster than I expected once they had the police report and the court documents. The fraudulent accounts were deleted from my history. My score rebounded to 800 within 2 months. I am writing this from the sunroom of my new house. It's a craftsman bungalow, just like I wanted. The walls are painted a soft sage green. The garden is full of real flowers that I planted myself, not expensive faux ones. Mark is in the kitchen making coffee. The smell fills the house, rich, grounding, real. I opened my laptop, but not to work. I logged into my bank account. I looked at the numbers. Mortgage paid on time. Savings growing, debt 0. I closed the laptop and looked out the window. The rain had stopped. The sky was a brilliant, piercing blue. For years, I thought my worth was tied to how much I could give them. I thought being a good daughter meant setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I thought I was the one who was bad with money because I couldn't keep up with their insatiable appetite for things. But I know the truth now. They didn't break me, they forged me. They turned me into someone who checks the details, who keeps the receipts, and who isn't afraid to stand up when the numbers don't add up. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the air of a home that was legally, financially, and emotionally mine. I had budgeted for the house. I had budgeted for the wedding. But I had finally learned to budget for the most expensive thing of all, my peace of mind. And that, it turns out, is priceless.